Right, so the sorry, the Arevaci are a Celto-Iberian tribe and have several distinct weaknesses, such as their distinct lack of armor. However, they are rather proficient in melee to make up for this. They have both a Celtic and slight Iberian influence. Their other weaknesses include no archers and to some extent subpar cavalry and subpar spearmen. However, their strengths lie in their great sort of slingers, the Balearic slingers, the 20 missile damage and 9 AP, their fear units, the painted warriors, and their scutari as their core frontline infantry, which can actually trade with the 4x swordsman, which costs about 90 more than they do themselves. They are a very strong faction that I believe is rather underrated, as they are very cheap and cost effective across the board, and even on attack they are viable despite their lack of archers. Um, their cavalry, as mentioned, is subpar, however there is one notable exception in the noble cavalry. Their elite melee cav is reasonably strong. It's very heavy mass, so it can do a lot of damage with the charge, and it's got some of the best melee stats on a cavalry, so if you're facing a eastern faction like Armenia or Parthia, you will have far better chance of winning if you take them as your general option rather than the noble fighter. They do have guerrilla deploy, seen these units coming up now, and they can guerrilla deploy your siege equipment if need be. They have javelin units, cheap javelins, never go wrong with them. Some basic slingers, and some more elite ones. Overall, a lightly armoured but ferocious in melee faction. And I will go meet them, I'll make a cut, and we'll go meet them on the plains in the Metachena. So we come back to meet their units individually on the plain in the Metachena. To kick it off, we will start with their low tiers and procedurally go forth into their stronger units by category. So to kick it off, we have the Iberian Spearmen, lightly armoured, poor stats across the board. They do come with javelins, and they have loose spacing like all of the Arevaci units. Their melee defenses are quite high, armour is low, bonuses large is exceedingly high, so any cavalry that fails to get the charge off will fall by the wayside. Their morale is 30, not brilliant, but it's okay. And there's not much to say about these guys, coming at 200, great for pushing up siege equipment or tanking a charge or eating a volley of peeler before your less survivable mid-tier is going to do real damage. The Iberian swords are of a unique unit, with 60 melee defense is exceedingly high, especially for a sword unit that only costs 350. Only 15 armor, they do come with the spacing, which I'll just make one clear hit. Every melee unit of the Lusitania and Arevaci will have it, so just so I don't have to keep saying it. Their morale is higher at 40, it's pretty good. Their weapon damage and attack is good. However, their main strength is actually hidden in the fact they have 5 volleys of non-targetable peeler. So, really, these are a low tier you want to save for the late game. When they're out of ammo, your opposition's out of ammo, and you can get their javelins off freely. A very unique and interesting unit, the Iberian Swords, and one I would very much recommend bringing. Moving on with one of their second core unit, because the Iberian Swords there, Scutari. Very high attack, coming at 42, good defense at 60, average charge. Their survivability is rather low, their morale's 50. No shield wall or any formation of them spacing, meaning cavalry will do a lot of damage to these guys if allowed to. But these guys can go fairly even against 4x and even win for only 620. That makes these a very, very strong unit. Arevaci can bring loads of different units, and despite their smaller roster than the RD I previously covered, they will every unit in their roster to function, and that's fine. Very dependable, though these guys will be shot up and they will fall away rather quickly. Next up, we have the Guerrilla Warriors for 650. Once again, another Guerrilla Deploy unit, except these guys are actually worth bringing to an extent. Their attack stats are the same as that of the Scutari. They have more defense, sacrificing armor for 27 charge and 65 defense. The morale is the same. Fear unit is very effective against Arevaci, as it is minus 15 morale, leaving their main line of only 35. So if they start losing, if the battle starts not going their way, they will have some trouble. But Guerrilla Warriors, if you need to Guerrilla deploy things in case of wall artillery in a random game, then these guys certainly have you covered, and they will get kills as well, unlike the Illyrian Raiders. Back here with the Scutari Spearmen, coming in at 500, which aren't often brought unless you're playing a land battle, which I don't know much about, so don't expect much advice on a land battle from me. But they do have cav counter tactics, which is very strong, and skill bonus versus large will go really high up. They do have shield screen, but they can't move when they're in it, so whilst they're braced, they cannot move, which is not a good formation, really. It's one of the worst ones, but they have it, so might as well say it. Once again, armor and health, they are either 500, I guess it's less worth to shoot these guys. Their morale is still 50, their charge bonus is mediocre, their attack and damage scores are mediocre. The defense is actually less than that of the Scutari, they're only 500, so I should think you'd be okay. They're a sound investment if you really need to kill cavalry, though at that point I'd rather get like 2 more Iberian Spears and get one to take the charge than the other in. Though, I guess my personal preference, but I don't personally recommend these guys. Moving on to another core unit is these Painted Warriors, who have the Fear effect, our first Fear unit, and they have Frenzy, so on top of their 32 charge bonus, they can get exceedingly high with that Frenzy. I'd imagine it'd be like just shy of 50 charge bonus, which already with the attack scores that they have, and their 60 morale, which is quite nice. They are dumpable once more, 45 armor, 55 HP, 50 defense. It's not brilliant, but these guys are shock infantry at the end of the day, and they're used to scare, which is great because even in loose spacing, they will. If you shoot at them in loose spacing, it's not worth it. Like even if it's 10 of them, they're still going to give the fear effect, and that's value in and of itself. I'd always recommend bringing 1 or 2 of these guys on defense or on attack, just to fear the enemy's front line, and you can send them in late game as good shock infantry. Now, moving on to their elite, the Noble Fighters, which their description is certainly reflective of their stats. Now, the Noble Fighters are fragile compared to other elites with only 75 armor, but they do get the health increase. They have the Headhunt and the Encourage. The Encourage will be sorely needed considering your lower than average morale. They have a really high charge bonus, really good defense, extremely high attack scores, and I believe their weapon is 6 AP. No, it's 5 AP, but still it's a very, very good weapon. 1380, they're very expensive, though you're still going to bring them more often than not as a general. Maybe a second one if you're on attack, though it really depends. Very, very strong unit. I don't know if it beats an Oathsworn, but it will do enough damage. It will do its damage, and that's what matters. Because you got the damage of the Iberians and the war armor of the survivability of a Celt, really, mixed in one, which is why I believe they are the most expensive elite infantry in the Grand Campaign. Unless I'm forgetting about one in particular, but I don't think I am. So, overall, very, very strong. Back here, actually, we'll start with Iberian Slingers. Standard Slingers, really nothing special. They do have the 25 armor, 10 more than the Slave Slingers previously seen, though they don't have the 50 missile block chance. Speaking of which, Arevaci's block chance is about 40 on average, and I wouldn't imagine the Slingers are anything better. Might even be worse, but typically you wouldn't bring the Iberian Slingers unless you're really desperate for funds. I don't know why you would be, but In case you were, then they're a good choice. Nothing bad, nothing exceptional. Coming at 280, they are slightly pricey for a cheap slinger, but you typically want to bring for the Balearics. With quick reload, 25 armor, 50 health, they are tankier and they can do more damage quickly. With 29 missile damage, I think it's 8 of it is AP actually. Yes, 8 of which is AP, meaning any armored faction is going to struggle, any faction no armor is going to struggle. Balearics, as long as they don't get the sustained fire, they're going to get 180 kills in a chevron easy. And many instances, they're going to get more. Once again, it's a case of if you look after them, they will most certainly look after you. Now moving on to the only Javelin unit, of which they're, like I said, their roster's rather small, but everything has a purpose. Nothing exceptional. Flaming shot coming at 290, the 32 damage. If you really, I've seen them brought a few times, but if you really need the extra javelins, then go ahead. Though I'd probably recommend the Iberian Swordsman over them for 60 more. Yes, you can't target their ammo and you get less volleys, but you have 40 more men in the unit, and the missile damage is the same. Their stats are subpar. Once again, treat them like the slave javelinmen of RDI. I'm gonna kick it. Start off with their cavalry, missile cavalry actually. The Cantabrian Cav. I'm a personal fan. I do like them. I know many people don't. They are extremely fragile. If you blow on them, they will die. They do the Cantabrian Circle, as they are Cantabrian Cav. They have quick reload, flaming shot, and 41 damage. So, if you need to kill enemy Cav and be a nuisance, if you're facing like Parthia, bring one of them on attack if you really have to. Because then you can just annoy their Camel Cataphracts, Eastern Cataphracts, as long as their Horse Archers, if they have any, don't focus them down. They will do some significant damage to enemy cavalry. And they have 80 health, which is something, though they've got no armor. 500, not a bad unit, though once they are out of ammo they become rather useless, because they are light and they won't do much damage. Moving on to the Celtiberian Cavalry, which is a mix of the Scutari Cav and the Heavy Horse. It's got 55 armor and 80 health, fairly good. It's got the wedge formation and the frenzied charge I mentioned before, where they will be unbreakable for the duration of the ability. Their stats overall are quite strong. It's got an okay weapon, good attack, good charge, better defense. For 650, they are medium melee cav, so they won't do the most damage on the charge, but they're still a solid choice if you need to, plug in a gap where cavalry's broken through your lines because you don't have shield or you can't really defend against it too easily. And they will certainly pay for themselves if they manage to be used defensively or get into lightly armored skirmishers like Eastern Archers. Moving on to their cheaper and lighter counterpart, the Iberian Cavalry. I am not a fan, personally. They are way too fragile, they're light, they won't do much damage on the charge, though they do have javelins, 2 volleys. I believe it's 32 damage, which is unique for melee cav. Not many have that. They do once again come with a frenzied charge, make you unbreakable, but it doesn't save the unit in my eyes. 500, you could be investing elsewhere into getting either low tier, like skirmishers, or just saving to get more mid-tiers. I wouldn't recommend ever bringing them unless you're just some sort of light horse god. So, their stats are fairly high, but even if you charge into, even if a good cav doesn't get a charge back at you, it's just sort of like a support force meets an immovable object. It doesn't do anything. Moving on to the best cavalry, and one of my favourites, the Noble Cavalry. Well, it's just exceptional, really. It's got the Encourage, it loses the Frenzy Charge, keeps the Wedge, but it has 105 health, 70 morale, 70 armor, 40 of which is base. Exceptional charge and melee defense. But weapon damage and bonuses as large is fairly good. It's a very good weapon, actually. And 55 attack. That attack score is exceptional. They are really, really strong for 1280, cheaper than the Noble Horse. I don't know if they beat them, though they will fulfill very much the same function. If you need versatility, if you need to be flexible depending on what you're facing, take them as a general, or take them as a second elite instead of the second noble fighter. They will most certainly serve you well as very heavy melee cav. They'll kill things on the charge, they will kill camel cataphracts and eastern cataphracts, so they won't come out unscathed, but they will win rather handedly. And that is basically it for the Arevaci. They are a very strong faction with a summarized amount of weaknesses at the beginning of the video, and I believe next time we'll be doing Armenia, Eastern faction. So they'll of course have strong cavalry and an interesting matchup against the Arevaci if they were to face off. But yeah, see you then.